Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well, then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. So, one of the perks of having this show and I guess being a listener of this show is I love to share things that I'm learning from the perspective of my clients. And the cool thing about being a fractional CFO is that when you have about a dozen different businesses that you help manage, you are also learning so much so rapidly because you're part of each of these journeys uniquely. And it's a really fun and interesting experience to be able to see the unique challenges, the wins, everything, the personalities from businesses ranging from, a million in revenue all the way up through 10, 20 million and seeing what struggles they have along the way. And one thing that keeps coming up, especially for the clients that we bring in on the newer side, is we see that they are making money, but there's a big gap. And I call this like the silent business killer because I call this, I have labeled complacency as the silent business killer because I find that when you are comfortable and when you are smooth sailing, you kind of get spoiled as an entrepreneur. And in one way, we all deserve a little bit of that smooth sailing once in a while. But when you get too comfortable, for example, when you hit a certain revenue level or you know that you're going to rake in a certain amount of profit per month, you may not be asking the right questions and finding out what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong still. Because even though net positively, you're generating cash flow, you're generating profit, you're generating all the stuff that you need to be, could you be doing more? Are you focusing on the right things? Are you living up to your potential? And are you basically incurring any opportunity cost of the decisions that you're making? Are you aware of that? Because you could just be happy with where you are, but unaware of how much better off you could be. And that's a big factor. So one way this is showing up is there's an agency client of ours that we work with, and they're currently making great money. They're highly profitable. They're making great cash flow. No issues there. They're on a trajectory to grow, double in the next 2 years. Cool. Now, all of that is well and good. But one thing we noticed is that we'll say each of their salespeople, you know, we're not sure how much each person is bringing in for new business. And when you're not tracking those metrics by person, by employee, I think any agency, whether it's fulfillment on those contracts or whether it's salespeople, when you're measuring performance of a team of employees in a service based business, you should consider looking at revenue by employee because what we discovered was when you look at revenue by employee, you realize that some people are really pulling each other's weight. It's kind of like looking at a group project in college and realizing who is doing all the work, even though the whole group gets an A. One person probably stood out as the major contributor to that, and the others were probably dead weight. I mean, you've probably been there. So, one thing we look at with our business owners is like, can we possibly look at performance on an individual level, identify the people who are outperforming, empower them more, reward them, celebrate them, also lead by example with them, and actually show the best practices to the other team members. This isn't in a design to create outliers and to create a divide between them, but in contrast, what you're doing is showcasing what it takes and then building a team of people who are willing to do that. And when you can define the expectations, the targets, the zones of what is healthy, people will then know if they're within that zone and they will know if they're falling short. They will also then try to convert that into urgency and action. So if you have one of these team members who's not performing and not delivering, If they know they're in a red zone and they're like, "Oh, I'm not gonna hit my target this month and I'm gonna be off by 20% or more. I'm gonna be falling short." They can proactively say, "Hey, I am not on target to get to my goal for my quota, whatever it is for the month, for the quarter." And they can get proactive about, what could I be doing differently? Could you shadow one of my calls? Go to somebody who's overperforming and say, "Hey, could cross train me on some things that you're doing?" Hey, Shannon here, and I have a quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying this podcast and enjoying this episode, please leave us a review on your podcast platform, whether that's Apple, Spotify, Amazon, any of them, and let us know if you're enjoying the show. One of your biggest takeaways, we would really, really appreciate it. Okay, back to the show. If everybody has that ownership, if they have that accountability to their own performance, you're going to see that the whole tide, that was it, a rising tide lifts all ships, but also all the ships will rise, and you'll be able to see, okay, everybody's performing better as a result of being really clear on what it takes to thrive in this organization and being clear on those expectations. This will also help develop the job description, develop the performance metrics, and so on from an HR perspective. But when you're looking at the financials, look at your margins, but look at them by not just by customer, but by employee and by team member. And you'll be able to see a lot of what's going on, because again, what this company realized was that they had a few top performers that were really carrying the whole team, and then there were a couple that consistently fell short of expectations, and they need to make a decision. They either needed to say, "Hey, we need to hire more of these A players and replace the B players, or we need to coach up the B players." So, and there's no right answer, no wrong answer, but what you have to do is commit to one of those approaches, and you have to really go all in with that decision. So you either have to straight up say, "We have to cut these people," and just do it, or you have to decide you're gonna coach them up. But if you're gonna coach them up, you have to basically define what that means and how much effort you're gonna put in, trust me. Because if by X date they're not hitting their targets despite all of the efforts you're gonna pour into them, you have to be able to make a call and have a firm deadline on that. So we were talking about how these metrics and how these financial tools could actually help you in your company to establish expectations of how much you're going to serve the clients, how much you're going to be managing from a book of business standpoint, or how much in general you as an individual are contributing or earning for the company, depending on the type of role that you fulfill. Now, for an agency model, revenue by employee is a key metric I would always track, especially service based. So you should be looking at, for every head count in our organization, how much money are we bringing in? And mostly ask yourself, what can they do to influence that number? Because in this particular case, especially with agency, is that they're the key client contact or the fulfilling party, or they're the salesperson. So they have a really high level of influence. But if you don't have a high level of influence, it's just a great idea to think about it in terms of revenue per head and have some type of target based on your capacities to make sure that you're within that zone. And yeah, it's overall a great metric to track. But again, no single metric is the end all be all. No single metric will tell you if you're healthy. If you look at solely your cholesterol, for example, for your body, that alone won't be able to allow you to conclude if you're healthy or not, right? You could say it's not in a great zone, not in the zone I want it to be in, but that doesn't mean something about your overall health. Okay. It just is one indicator. So treat this as one indicator, treat this as one tool that you can possibly use to look at these different types of things. But this is what will enable you to combat the silent business killer, which is complacency. When you start getting, you know, complacent about, hey, it's all working in the grand scheme of things, it's all working in the big picture, well, then what will end up happening is you won't dig deeper and you won't find where those problems really lie. You got to be looking at all of your different clients. Are you profitable? All of your employees, are they generating profit for you? All of your different software subscriptions, are you using all of them? You have to be looking with a critical eye at all times, even when you're generating cash flow and profit in a comfortable way. And I would say, especially when you're doing that, because little things can sneak in and you might be able to say yes a little bit more often than you normally would, because you know the bank account can support it. So look at it with that critical eye every so often and remember to always be paying attention and making those conscious, intentional decisions. If you want to invest in something or if you want to grow as a business, get really intentional about that growth. Get really intentional about those metrics and goals you'll be tracking. Stay focused, eyes on the prize. One of the fastest ways that digital business owners lose cash is not having a clean tech stack. And by that, I mean individual costs for email marketing platforms, CRM, community page, course creation platform, website designers, and all these things do add up. And it can be super hard to run a profitable business using all of these different systems. That's why I love Kajabi. Kajabi is your all-in-one solution that manages your business throughout the customer journey. From lead generation to taking payment and sending onboarding emails, we use Kajabi for everything. And you can try Kajabi for 14 days free by heading to trykajabifree.com or click the link below in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform. This small action goes a long way for podcasters to get our message heard by more business owners just like you. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to information about our guests and ways to get in touch with me. We'll see you on the next episode.